hurricane proof.
Okay, we'll call the Personnel and Administration Committee meeting to order. First thing we need is a motion to approve the prior minutes, or the minutes of the prior. So moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Molino. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, is there any privilege of the floor? Is there anything anyone would like to bring up before we get going in the agenda? Don't see anything, so we'll move right into our action agenda. Request items to be discussed by the clerk of the board. Letter A, we have our resolution tracking report there. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions on that, or Amanda, is there anything you?
I don't think there's anything to point out. This is just a standard tracking report that lists where the resolutions are after they were approved. If anyone has any questions on it, please just give me a call.
Okay, we'll move on to B. Request to further amend resolution number 374 of 2017 to increase transportation and forensic medical fees.
So,
Okay. Did you
Nope,
wanna-
I don't know
Okay.
what she said.
Moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion?
What is it?
It's a resolution.
I don't know.
Um,
Cover the coroner's cost for some of the autopsies and the retrieval of deceased patients or deceased members of the public.
What were we paying them out before?
The mileage part hasn't increased. What they're doing, if you look on the current resolution, it was $400 to Glens Falls Hospital, $500 to Albany Med. And they would be changing it to $650 regardless of where it's going. That $650 also includes the transport bag, which was $90. So now it's going up to $650, but that $90 is moved up into the $650. So the transport fee has increased somewhat, but it now includes that bag that we would have been billed for separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, letter C, request for a transfer of funds in the amount of $10,000 from the contingent account to cover a deficit in the coroner's budget. Moved by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any discussion? Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah. How did this happen?
We budget a flat amount of $100,000 per year for this each year, but we can't tell how many people are going to die. So if more than $100,000 worth is spent, we come back and look for more money. It's typically we're coming back looking for money. I can only recall maybe 1 year since I've been here that we haven't had to ask for money, that we've been under budget. But
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We're ready for the question. I'll call it. All those in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 2, requests and items to be discussed by the county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is in reference to our Director of Public Affairs position. This position was created in mid-year. I believe that it was in March that we created the position, so it was not included in the 2020 budget. And this would be a transfer from contingency so that our accounts balance when the books are closed at the end of the year.
Okay, somebody want to move that? Supervisor Merlino, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? Now remind everybody to please speak into the mics so everyone can hear us. Supervisor Kramer?
Thank you. I'm surprised we haven't done this sooner in the year, given that he's been around for a while and doing a good job at that, Don, wherever you are. How have we been paying him up to now? And how much is in our contingency account now?
The contingency now, starting before anything is any of these pieces are done today, is $120,000. So if you'll see on the finance agenda, all of those contingency requests total out to less than $120,000. So where we will end up at the end of today with something left in contingency.
How have we been paying? What budget line are we paying out of now?
He's paid in the salary line in the county administrator's office.
Okay, so this is basically to make your department not be in the deficit.
That's right. This is part of the year-end transfers that we do to make sure that when we close the books, we don't have accounts that are in the red, because that's the finding on the audit.
Thank you.
Okay, and Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, I just have a question on that. I mean, when we agreed to hire, and I'm happy that Don is here. I think he's doing a great job and he's been a great asset.
Excuse me, Supervisor, could you please speak into the mic? Thank you.
I guess my question is, I just wanted to thank Don for all the great work he's done. He's been a great help to me. And I know he has been a great help to everybody else that is used them. And I see all the posts that he's been putting out there, which is great for the county. I guess my question is that why do we wait until the end of the year to do this when, when we hired him, why wasn't the money transferred over, thinking that, at the head, I just, are we just trying to, I don't know. I'm just concerned why we're doing it now and the money wasn't transferred at the time of hiring.
It's part of the year-end transfers that we always do.
Okay. I'm just learning. So thank you.
Okay, if we're ready for the question, I'll call it. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
The second item is the renewal of our mail fulfillment services contract. As you might remember from earlier this year, our prior mailing contract was with Mailings Made Easy. That was a 3-year contract that we entered into 5 years ago, and there were 2 renewals for a period of 1 year. So 2020 was the final renewal year for Mailings Made Easy. Mailings Made Easy sold its business to New York State Industries for the Disabled. And they've been handling those services for us, I believe, since August. Is that right, Tammy? And been doing a pretty good job. So this is a renewal. At this point in time, we're presenting it as a 1-year renewal. We want to make sure that we ought to continue going down the road of having a private, I don't want to say a private company, but a third party do these services for us rather than bringing it in and doing it in-house as we used to. I don't think that it's financially advantageous to bring it in-house, but we figured let's have a little bit more of this service. Let's audit the bills and see. We'll do a cost comparison at some point next year and see whether it would be worthwhile to do it differently. This is a continuation of the existing services that are provided by this company. There is a rate. So basically, there are 3 ways that we pay for our mail. One is on postage. And when you do pre-sort, which is what this company is doing for us, you get reduced postage. Those postage rates are set by the United States Postal Service. And so we'll pay the reduced postage rate that we have to pay to get this mail out. The second is a handling fee. I believe on this proposal that's in the packet, they do call it a handling fee. That's the 7 cents per envelope that you see. The current price is 6 cents. So that would go up 1 cent. If you look at our utilization, we do about 13,000 pieces of mail per month. So it'll be an increase of $1,560, that 1 cent. The other third piece of the cost here is courier services. Right now, we pay $6 a day for this company to come and pick up the mail and run it down to Albany. Under this proposal, we pay $7 a day. That equates to an increase of $250 for the year. So I know that's a lot to take in. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we spoke earlier in the year a little bit about that cost comparison. I just wondered if it could stay on the agenda moving forward or put a work group together to talk more about the ability to create some additional revenue lines and also save money for the towns the way we used to do with the print shop. And also I know there's been a couple issues with the mail since it was switched over, but I think it would be worth taking a look at what our print shop combo mailroom is doing and how we can effectively meet the needs not only of our municipalities, but also of the county to have those quick turnaround times. We did save a ton of money with the Board of Elections this year by doing a few things in-house. So it was a good kind of test example.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea. And maybe support services committee.
Support services or shared services?
Oh, yeah, shared services is what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I'm not on your committee, so I can't make that referral, but perhaps someone else.
I can refer it. I think it's a great idea. I know there's times when, we need printing services and we don't have the resources to do it. And if there's cost savings and it benefits everyone, I think it'd be a great idea.
Well, thanks for that support. That would be great.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else on that? Okay, does somebody, do we have a motion in a second? I don't think we do. Somebody want to move that? Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. The third item is on behalf of the assigned counsel office. We have a contract with attorney Robert Greger to perform services of supervising attorney for the assigned counsel office. It's a state requirement to have an attorney involved in this process. It's tied in with the state's agreements to enhance indigent legal representation. There is state funding attached to this. It's through the Harrell Herring grant. Is that correct, Joy? There was confusion as to whether this needed to come on to the Criminal Justice Committee meeting. The confusion was driven by whether or not the current contract had expired and whether we would need to extend that contract in order to pay the provider for the remainder of the year. We did some investigation into it, and we discovered that the current contract is open-ended. There had been also a concern about the not to exceed amount. So what we discovered is that the initial year for funding, we're into the third year, but the amount for the third year has not yet been awarded by the state of New York. For the first year, the state awarded $14,000 and change. If anybody has the exact amount, Tammy, do you have that?
14,320.
14,320 was the year one award. The year two award was $20,000. So that totals out to $34,000. And we've spent, you have that one, Tammy?
22,000 and change to date.
22,000 and change to date. So what we're looking to get out of this resolution is just clarity that the remainder of the 34,000 that we have not yet spent, that's already been allocated by the state of New York to this program. We're getting clarification that the remainder of that amount is good through March 31st, which is the state fiscal year. And we will bring this back to Criminal Justice Committee in January to discuss the next piece of the funding that's approved by the state. We don't know how much that will be yet, but we'll discuss the term for that as well as any not to exceed concerns that the department has.
Supervisor Seaver.
I just wanted to highlight the fact that while I don't, this is usually something that we would have going through criminal justice. And at our last criminal justice meeting, the information was presented with a short time frame and not enough time for our committee members to take a look at it along with some other items. So we've met at great lengths, and I appreciate Joy's, efforts towards that, and also our county administrator to try to come up with a resolution that would meet the needs. And like I said, as our county administrator pointed out, perhaps that need is not as urgent as we initially thought. So this was put on the agenda with the permission of Supervisor Simpson. And, I think that it cleans it up until the committee can meet again in January and have a discussion about how those contracts read, whether it's a not to exceed, whether it's a flat amount. But the assigned counsel grants are complicated, and Tammy's got a great handle on it, but just for purposes of checks and balances, it seemed to make sense to clean this up before the year expired. The issue here was Mr. Greger's contract expired, or didn't expire, but he was hired a year ago in November. So there were some questions with the auditor's office, which did a great job in making sure that all the T's were crossed and I's were dotted. So that's why it's in front of you, really as an emergency basis, but that need probably has decreased over the last few days.
Yes, and thanks to everybody that took the time to figure this out, because as Rachel mentioned, this grant is very difficult.
Would someone like to move this to the floor? Supervisor McDevitt, do we have a second? Supervisor Bramer,
Thanks.
discussion?
Yeah,
Go
thank
ahead.
you so much. So now I'm a little confused. Do we need this to go forward today or not? Now that you're saying we still want something before the end of the year to clarify. I'm looking in my packet. There is a resolution from 2020 that talks about us having an agreement with Mr. Gregor for 28,800.
May I?
Supervisor Seaver.
Thanks Supervisor Bramer. The issue came up because Mr. Gregor brought to our attention that he didn't think he was going to be paid from November on. And of course, whenever someone comes to us and says, you know, we have an issue about getting paid for services that have already been rendered and that date has passed, we make every effort to make sure that our contractors or our employees are addressed. And that's why everything kind of stopped last week to figure it out. Like I said, otherwise it would have come to criminal justice. Upon really looking into that, what the auditor's office was able to determine is there wasn't an end date in the contract. So he could in fact still be paid and still submit those invoices. So again, this cleans it up more for the auditor's perspective than anything else, but it's up to this committee whether or not you want to push it forward or you can wait till January. Either way, he's now getting paid is the point. And I appreciate that.
He's not getting.
He is getting paid.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. Because the contract didn't have, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the contract, the auditor's office flagged it because it was at the 1 year mark. And auditor's office isn't provided with copies of the contract. And so, and maybe Mary can clean this up a little bit.
They have all copies.
The contract language?
Yeah.
Okay, because the emails I saw was that the policy that we have established with the auditor's office, and I'm sure Carla can correct all this if I'm speaking out of turn, is that the department head is responsible for providing those updates to the auditor's office based on the policy that she sent out, which I had a chance to read the other day. So, you know, I just think it was miscommunication and, you know, it's rectified with this, but it's a little cleaner. It can stay as it is and the committee can adjust it in January if they prefer.
Yeah, I can clarify, I think, a little bit of that. In our contract management system, there's a tag that gets put on contracts to remind the auditor's office to reach out to the department about renewing the contract. And in this case, that tag, because it's not an auto renewal contract, it's something that's sort of different where it just goes according to the grant. And when the grant's gone, the contract ends and the services stop. So it's in a different category. So the auditor's office in performing their role flagged it for potential renewal with the department. And that's what created the confusion. Is the department thought that it needed to be renewed.
Supervisor,
Okay, well, on the amount that he's getting paid, I mean, we've had problems in the past where an attorney went over their amount, not to exceed amount, and we just said we weren't going to pay that person. So are you telling me that he's still under the 28,000 since November of 2019?
Yes.
Correct. And that was the issue. I remember that issue very well, as does Joy, and we did not want that to be occurring whatsoever. So I know this is definitely on their radar screen as an issue to be bringing the committee well ahead of time in the future, but that is not the circumstance. He's still well within the grant funds and the authority that the board gave him last November. Does that answer your question?
And he knows that.
He's very clear on that.
Okay. And I'm sure Joy will make sure we get it covered because she wants, I'm sure, to have that supervising attorney there managing these things.
I have full faith in Joy.
Yes.
okay,
Okay,
so
thank you.
we ready for the question?
Chairman,
Sure.
can you just clarify the motion, please? The resolution request only changes the termination date. I just want to clarify whether or not we're increasing that not to.
The not to exceed amount refers back to there's 28,800, which refers back to an initially the second year of this contract for these services was going to be $28,800 from the state. The department, with approval of the state, since amended that to bring it down to $20,000. So that piece of what we're saying is that the 34,000 and change that has to date been approved by the state of New York, that 34,000 and change is good through the state fiscal year, through March 31st, 2021.
So the contract expires March 31st of 2021. He can spend up to 34 before that date.
That's right. And And what we're referring to is year 1 and year 2 of this ILS funding. Year 3 is not yet awarded, so we'll bring back to committee when year 3 is awarded, and we'll work that into the approval to perform these services. Well, whenever it is that the state approves that funding, we'll bring it back to committee. And I should also mention that the state, if what's left in this grant is not spent by March 31st, the state will allow us to roll it past March 31st.
Supervisor Seaver?
Just for good news with that, there is no match money on this. So it's at a cost of someone, somewhere, a taxpayer, not a local Warren County taxpayer. The county is not, not that that matters, because I think it's important to have the checks and balances. And everyone across the board has done a really good job of trying to put their mind around this one. But this is exactly why it needs to come through committee before it comes to personnel. But thank you.
Chairman Thomas?
So we're increasing the not to exceed the 34,320.
Yeah, we're specifying that for year 1 and year 2, the amount is 34,320, and we're saying that amount is good for, so that if there's not a confusion again amongst staff, that amount is good through March 31st.
Sure. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks, just quickly, I think it'd be really great if that could be spelled out in the preamble to the resolution. Thank you.
We will do so. We'll make sure it's clear.
Okay, are we ready for the question this time? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, committee members. And the next item is on behalf of Countryside Adult Home, and I believe there's somebody present over Zoom that can speak to this one.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm here to request that we pay out of title pay to Judith Tennant. Our senior account clerk has been, position has been vacant since June. Judy has stepped up and been doing those duties since then. And it's along with her other duties that she continues to do. And I think we just need to compensate her for that. The building can't run without a fiscal person. Between the revenues, the T86 accounts, the vendors getting paid on time, it's just imperative somebody be in that position. We're continuing to look for someone, but in the meantime, I think we really need to compensate her.
Supervisor Bramer?
I will move it.
Do we have a second? Supervisor Frazier? Okay, discussion. Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, if she's doing so good and doing the other things, can we save a little money and have her continue doing both, or is this stressing her out?
It's just too much work. I mean,
Okay.
she's running around basically with her head cut off all day long to try to make sure that the needs of the facility and the residents are met. Right now, having an activities program is pretty number one too. You're in shutdown mode. You want to make sure that the residents have something to do, but at the same time, you want to pay the vendor that got the food here. So, I mean, it's a balancing act, but it's definitely long-term, not a possibility.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Bramer? Supervisor Bramer, you too.
My only comment was that it looks like they're able to cover this in their 2020 budget, so I don't see any problem with giving that.
Yeah, we're going to absorb it because we've had that vacancy since June in the 130 line. So that's how we'll pay.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the benefit of the Human Service Committee members, this was an issue that was going to be discussed at Human Service Committee, but it was thought, and I agree that it was more appropriate to bring it to the Personnel Committee. Thanks.
Okay, is everyone ready for the question? Okay, I'll call it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
The next piece is from the Department of Social Services. Is there anyone on Zoom that can speak to this one?
Good morning, this is Tammy Breen. We are looking to request an amendment to Resolution 209 of 2020. What we're looking to do is to add Weight House to the current resolution So we are able to give them some of our youth allocation funds this year. Due to COVID, all of the towns did not run a program. So we had some money left over. Waite House is already doing the work with the youth that they have at the shelter. So we're just looking to give them some of the money so that way we use that whole allocation.
Okay, would someone like to move this to the floor? Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Item F is the planning department got word from New York State that funding round was opened up. I believe it was either the afternoon of the meeting or the day after the economic growth meeting. And there's a tight deadline to apply for this grant. Is that correct, Wayne? Wayne?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I just heard my name, so I am assuming that you're talking about our resolution request.
Yeah, yes, we're to you, sir. And I had led into this by saying that I believe New York State opened up the application for this either the afternoon of the economic growth meeting or the day after. And we have a tight deadline that won't allow us to do this early next year. Is that right?
Yes, we're looking to submit an application under the Main Street program. As the administrator said, we had our committee meeting on Monday, and then the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, this funding announcement came out. So the applications are due the 15th of January, so we would not have another committee meeting before. So we have to take advantage of this, the December board meeting, to submit an application. We're looking at one project right at the moment, and that's the Tannery Pond Community Center. The resolution request is to be able to submit multiple projects and multiple applications if we can find other projects that meet the criteria and are competitive. What you have to realize is the state announced $6.2 million statewide. And if you look at 62 counties, that's roughly $100,000 a county if they want to do geographic distribution. So you have to really make a strong case and have a solid project and hope that you get the support of your assembly person in the coming year to support those applications. So little pitch there, Matt. So
I think I heard you, Wayne, loud and clear.
So we'd like the committee's authorization and the board's authorization to go ahead and submit an application for the Main Street program. Projects that will be recommended will require a local match. It is our intention that there not be any local match responsible at the county level. And the project at Tannery Pond, the town has agreed to provide the match. They've also agreed to a ban for funding the entire project since this is a reimbursement. They have to expend the full amount. So that's a premise we would work under, and I'd certainly be willing to discuss any additional projects that come forward with the administrator and my committee chair.
Someone, Supervisor Garrity?
I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any other discussion?
I'd like to add, Mr. Chairman, that if there are additional projects identified on my way to this meeting today, I did call up Mike Wild to see how he wants that handled, and it would be his expectation that we would have another discussion in economic growth if additional projects are identified so that the board can keep up with what's going on.
Okay.
Supervisor Bramer?
To that end, I love my neighbors in North Creek, and I'm happy that they are able to apply for this funding. I'm just wondering, what are the basic criteria so that the other communities, including Glens Falls, could take a look at putting in for funding, understanding that they also would have to, put forth their own local match. And going forward, how are we getting notified that these are available to all of the communities?
The state of New York issued a blanket release via email and public notice on the funding availability. The criteria is, I provided, I think, 5 pages out of the the program guide. It's a 39-page document that just begins to touch on what they're looking for. Basically, they're looking for Main Street projects that would serve as an anchor. They are potentially municipally owned, but managed by a not-for-profit. They cannot be run by the government. The not-for-profit board of directors cannot include an elected official. So there's a whole host of criteria. They really want to support cultural and arts programs versus municipal type activities. So I guess short of reading all 39 pages, they will not really do streetscape per se. They want to do building facades or what they call a downtown anchor, which is what we would label the Tannery Pond as. So I guess that's a brief overview.
Okay, thank you. Especially with the arts and cultural component, sounds like Tannery Pond is a perfect fit for that.
Correct. That's what first came to mind when I was reading the criteria. So I reached out to Supervisor Hogan, and they agreed to write the check. So that gives us a viable project to at least begin exploring.
Wayne, would you mind sending me any of the background that you have from the state on this, and I'll make sure that we get that out to all the supervisors and mayors.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else before I call the question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
The final piece is on behalf of the Public Health Department. We discussed this with the chair of the Public Health Committee, and the decision was made to bring this this morning to personnel. Is anyone on from Public Health that we can speak to this request? Oh, Janelle's here. Good morning. This is the per diem, are they per diems or are they temporary? The per diems.
So good morning, everybody. I thank you for allowing us to have this late breaker. And looking at the surge and looking at what's going on around us, what I'm asking to do is add an additional up to 10 public health assistants, which is a temporary position. The annualized salary is $37,633, prorated at $1809. It's a grade 10 position. We're using students in this position to help us with our contact tracing, and we're looking to also use them for case investigations, for driving around visiting people, for following up with phone calls or travelers and such. And so what we're looking to do is add them. We already have 9 of our other 10 positions filled with somebody in that for that 10th slot. And as we're seeing this spike, I just want to be sure if our 10 people aren't available, I can mirror them. To be crystal clear, I'm not looking to use all 20 at the same time, full-time hours or anything like that. It's just strictly if I have my pool of 10 right now that can't work a weekend hour, that I have a bigger pool to draw from so that I can make sure my hours are covered.
Okay, would someone like to move on? Supervisor Garrity? Boy, everybody's got their hand up. Supervisor Melito? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Janelle. Coming up with a creative way.
Okay, item number 3, request and items to be discussed by the county attorney. Our litigation update.
Yep, so I only have a litigation update today, so I would ask for an executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. I'm opposed to us going into executive session if we're just talking about the updates, like our normal monthly update.
That's fine. I think that, as long as we don't get into strategy, I think, or details.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what she said. She did think it would affect our strategy.
I'll let her answer.
Majority of the recently filed notice of same. We haven't even engaged the plaintiff's attorney yet, so I would need to discuss that.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is permissible, but we have two representatives from Health Services. Item number 6 is Health Services issues. Could we at least maybe?
We did that. Oh, we didn't. Oh, did I leave?
Yeah, could we jump ahead?
Oh, okay.
and
Oh, I'm
get that
sorry.
so that,
I'm sorry.
Janelle and Tom don't have to hang around here and then go back to the, if that's all right with the attorney.
So if you'll withdraw your motion to go in executive session, we'll take care of the.
This is actually the appropriate time for a motion to table. Exactly the moment I'm supposed to use that motion, so.
Thank you.
The motion to table will come back to mine and this moves there.
Supervisor McGowan.
I'll make a motion to table the executive session.
Do we have a second? Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor of tabling that motion? Aye. Opposed, carried. Okay. Move right into item number 6, referrals from the Health Services Committee, Public Health. A, request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill the new position, business specialist, public health, grade 18, base salary of $46,492, as well as to delete the position of public health program manager, grade 21, base annual salary of $50,816, effective December 21st, 2020. Someone like to move that? Supervisor McGarity, second by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item B, request to authorize carryover of all remaining 2020 accrued leave balances as of December 31st, 2020, including vacation carryover, floating holidays, personal time, and days in lieu of, with the exception of cancer screening leave time to 2021 accrual balances to be available through December 31st, 2021 for the Assistant Director of Home Care, Assistant Director of Public Health, and Director of Public Health and Patient Services. So moved by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion on that? Call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Okay, thank you.
Chairman,
Supervisor Bramer.
thank you. On that, do we do that for all of our departments? Why are we getting this request? This one about assistant director of home care. It looks like it's just, I don't know, 2 or 3 positions carrying over leave balances. Do we normally do that, or what is the deal here? I know it already passed. I'm just curious what the policy is.
We have 2 classes of employees depending on their hire date. If they're post, what is that date?
I think it's 20th, 2012.
2012. Okay. So if you're hired after that date in 2012, you accrue leave time. You earn vacation time as you go, and you're capped off at 175 hours. I'm capped at 175 right now. I can't earn any more vacation time. So you have to use it, and then if you get back down below 175, you'll earn back up to 175, and that's where it stops. The people that were hired prior to that date, they get what's called buckets. So in the beginning of the year, based on how many years of service they have with the county, they get a certain amount of weeks. I believe the most you can get is 5 weeks.
You can get 4, but you can carry over 1.
Right. So you get 4 new weeks, and those people are allowed to carry over up to 1 week from the prior year that was not used. So what we would be asking for in this case is these particular employees had a lot more than 1 week in the prior year that they're not going to be able to use. So the request is to carry over that amount in excess of the 1 week into next year. Otherwise, they lose it.
Right, but isn't that what happens with all those people from before? Aren't we making a special exception for these 3 people then to be able to carry over more than 1 week?
That's exactly what we're doing. Precisely.
What about all the rest of the people?
We don't have anybody else that's in that situation.
There's nobody else. Okay,
And obviously,
Sure.
it goes without saying, we are dealing in uncertain, volatile times. Once in 100 years, a pandemic comes down our road, and we have people working unusual hours, under unusual circumstances, and we have to support that effort, public health.
okay. I must have been asleep at the wheel a little bit. These are people who they literally haven't been able to take any vacation this year because of the pandemic, because they're in public health. All right, I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we might as well take the other items here before we do anything else. We'll go back to item number 4, items request to be discussed by the Human Resources Director. Our report on tracking of vacancies filled was in your packets. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions on that. Okay, we'll move to B. There's an update on terminations and exit interviews. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, we'll move to item number 5. Items and requests to be discussed by the Personnel Officer. Request to authorize a new agreement with Standard Medical Testing Services, a division of Mountain Medical Services, PLLC, to provide patrol and police officer candidate physical exam services. Someone like to move this? Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussions? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. So we do have a tabled litigation report. Supervisor Bramer.
Could we please have our normal update before we go into executive session to talk about strategy?
I think everybody wants it. Supervisor Seaver.
Again, I recognize I'm not on the committee, but I would support that. I'm just, I have some questions that I believe are appropriate for public discussion. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask them at some point. That way, if you deem it has to go into executive, it can be carried over versus coming out and asking them and going back in.
Yeah, I'm good with the questions, and I'll defer to our county attorney whether it's appropriate to answer in open session or executive session.
Okay, thank you. May I ask that question?
Sure.
On your report that you emailed out, Mary, you had indicated that several of them were being handled by the insurance carrier. And I'm sorry, I know I need to speak up into the microphone for YouTube, and I had gotten. Anyway, I know that there's some that are handled by an insurance company. And what I wondered is there an opportunity to have those lawyers be able to come in and update our board on what's going on in those cases? It's significant. And I know we pay a lot of money in those deductibles as well. And those are cases that you're not handling. But can we make a request for that for a future meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't, can you talk into, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm giving you updates on all those cases, but absolutely, we can ask them to come in as well.
On the ones that you put, like, it's to the insurance carrier?
Yeah, I still give you updates.
Yeah, because I know in some municipalities it's handled a little differently as well, and they'll come in and give us some more detail about what's going on, so that might be helpful.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think one of those in particular, I don't know where we are with the opioid litigation. Might be nice to have some update on that one. Another question that I had regarding one that you have here listed as covered by insurance. Mary, I had asked you for our coverage letter in that particular case, and I don't remember seeing it. I did ask you this morning, so you may not have had a chance to look, but I do want to be sure that we are completely covered by insurance on this one, that we have no liability other than, or could you explain to us what is out there as far as our coverage?
I guess I don't understand the question. What are you concerned about not being covered?
I would like to know if they, for instance, the insurance company said that they're reserving any of the coverage on the claims, any part of her claims against the county.
Which case are we talking
I'm
about?
sorry. Yeah, I'm talking as if everybody knows it. This is Morgan versus Warren County.
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's a reserve
I'm asking if the insurance company, reserved any of their rights to not cover the case.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think so. They've been covering the defense costs up until this point, so I mean, we have a deductible like we do in every case.
Right. Okay, I'm just curious because we're getting coverage, or I'm sorry, we're getting our defense through a local attorney. Okay,
Did the insurance company, can you repeat that? Reserve any of their rights?
correct.
Is your problem with the law firm that's representing?
No. I did ask you for invoices from them on this case, and you said that we do not even see them. So, but maybe we can ask them to send them to us. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't if they're covering us, if they're defending us. Okay, and I know we have agreements with that firm. Not covering
this.
this.
Has nothing to do with our agreement.
Right, I know. Okay.
We'll get an answer to that question.
Supervisor Seaver.
Just to follow up on that question, since it's brought up, the one, I thought that there were, I saw it on your list, Mary, but I didn't see an update on it. And the update that, and perhaps I'm wrong, but I thought that it was on the calendar for oral arguments in the appellate piece in January. So the concern about, is the county on the hook for any dollar of those efforts? You know, what's covered and what isn't, I think is probably important, unless you're saying everything's covered. But to know that that one's coming up and I just didn't see that on your list, so I was surprised.
Yeah, I have a update for you on my list.
Okay.
There's oral arguments in January. When I send you the email,
Okay.
it's just the names. It's not the updates in the email. I give you those for.
Okay, I didn't see an update next to it. That's why I was wondering about the appellate piece of it. I didn't think that was strategy related, so.
If there's no update, no update. Next
Okay.
week. If there is an update, it's on September.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? What would the committee like to do now as far as the litigation report discussion of an executive session? I guess I don't see anybody, so I don't know if there's any questions. If not, we can. Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a difficult time hearing from the boardroom, but on the question of executive session, what I did hear was our attorney made a recommendation that we discuss certain items under litigation in executive session. Is that correct?
Yes, and then there was a motion and a second, and it was ultimately tabled.
The motion to go into executive session was tabled?
Yes, prior.
Yeah. Just for the record, the recommendation to go into executive session, I think that our county administrator and county attorney are well versed in the provisions for going into executive session. And now that doesn't mean that any particular supervisor has to support that. And if they don't wish to support that, they can support that with their vote, which would be in the negative. Those that do support that would then vote in the affirmative. And then should there be consequences as a result of not going into executive session, then at least those that have voted in the affirmative have at least that to fall back on, and those that wish to vote in the negative would then have to deal with whatever the fallout was on that. So I think that the question of executive session being tabled is of a concern to me, and but I just would put that out there that I'm not suggesting that anyone that does not wish to go into executive session doesn't have the right to vote no on a motion to go into executive session. That's certainly their right. But those that might vote in the affirmative because they feel that that there are important matters to be discussed that could affect contracts, could affect personnel, could affect funding, could affect a lot of negotiations, et cetera, at least have had the opportunity to cast a vote in that regard. And that concludes what I have to say. I mean, I think that, again, I don't have any issue with any supervisor that wishes to vote against going into executive session. I, on the other hand, would like to have the right to be able to vote my way as well. Thank you.
I believe it was just to hold off discussions until the committee had an opportunity to ask questions prior to any executive session on what could be discussed in public.
All right.
Now, if you're making a motion to go in executive session, I would certainly entertain that.
Is that still the recommendation of the county attorney and administrator?
That is.
Then I would make that motion. Absolutely.
Okay, do we have a second? Supervisor Frazier. All those in favor of going into executive session to discuss Yeah,
We're good to go.
okay, we're good to go. There was no decision. We just had an update on our litigation. And so I'll open it up. I'm not sure if Mr. Lehman is online. Are there any public comments?
Hello, Chairman. I am still here and we have no public comments.
Thank you. Oh, we have, oh, I still have more. Okay. Such a long morning. Okay, also, before we adjourn, we don't have any pending items, but we do have positions authorized for filling by standing committee since last meeting. We have a list there for your information in your packets, and didn't want to leave without pointing that out. Is there anything further from the committee? Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you all.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have something. I'm so sorry, we adjourned. Well, we're probably off the record. I just wanted to say